Good morning and welcome to Sewickley Public Libraries and Allegheny Land Trust story about the great backyard bird count. I'm Mrs. Farmery and I'm so glad you can join me today. Each February for 4 days this year, February 12th through 15th, people from all around the world come together to watch, to learn about, count, and celebrate birds. Over these 4 days, the Audubon Society and Cornell University invite people to spend time in their favorite places watching and counting as many birds as they can find and reporting them on an app called eBird. This app helps people count and identify birds. You can also use a paper tally sheet to count and identify the birds. These observations will help scientists better understand global bird population before their great big spring migration. Today, we are going to read a few stories about birds, how to find them in nature. We will also learn how to make a nature bird feeder out of oranges. And our friend, Miss Julie Traveline from Allegheny Land Trust will stop by to tell us all about birds of Pennsylvania and how to use the tally sheets for the bird count. Our first book today is How to Find a Bird, written by Jennifer Ward and illustrated by Diana Zuka. I would like to thank Simon & Schuster for their permission to read the book to you today. So let's learn how to find a bird. There are a lot of ways to find a bird. That's the wonderful thing about birds. To find a bird, first you'll want to blend in and move slowly. Quiet is good too. So quiet you can hear your heartbeat. Shh. Don't just look up to find a bird. Look down, low to the ground, where some birds forage, seeking things hiding in the earth. Look down where some birds seek snacks. Look down where some birds splash. If you take a walk, watch your step. Some birds nest on the ground. Be careful. So don't just look up to find a bird. Sometimes you can find a bird by looking straight ahead. You will have to have a sharp eye, as sharp as an eagle's. Birds are the cleverest blenders of all. First, you may not see them, but if you wait, if you are still, and if you are quiet, you will see that you are just as clever as a bird. Of course, you can always look up to find a bird too. You can look high up into the sky where birds fly. Sometimes when you look up, you will find birds just simply sitting. I bet you've seen lots of birds on telephone poles. If you want to find a bird, don't be tricky. Some birds are stealthy. There it is. Wait a minute, where did it go? Was that even a bird? Sometimes you don't need to find a bird. It will find you. Hello, bluebird. Some birds will announce their presence when they are near, or announce your presence when they see you. And if you feed them, they will come. Then all you need is a window to find a bird. Some birds can't be found at all unless you read about them. These birds are extinct, which means they no longer exist. The best way to find a bird, if you want to find one, is to close your eyes. Did you hear that? Did you hear that bird? Tweet, 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 chirp, 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 woo, woo, woo. That's the wonderful thing about birds. How to find a bird.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in today. My name is Julie Travelini and I'm the Senior Director of Education and Curriculum for Allegheny Land Trust, whose offices are about 2 doors away from the library, so we're kind of neighbors. But I'm super glad you guys tuned in today because we're learning all about the Great Backyard Bird Count. What is the Great Backyard Bird Count, or the GBBC for short? Well, the Great Backyard Bird Count is in its 24th year, so it's 24 years old now. And it's a big get-together where people from all over the world come together and count birds all over the world. Why do we want to count birds all over the world? Well, birds are super important to the environment. They're indicators of lots of things like air quality and water quality and overall habitat health. So we have to keep track of birds to make sure our Earth as a whole is healthy. So what does the Great Backyard Bird Count kind of do? What do we do? So people from everywhere, 194 countries participated in 2020. So when I say everywhere, I really mean it. 194 countries. That's most of the countries on Earth. And we spend an entire weekend in February over President's Day counting birds. So this year it falls on February 12th through 15th, but every year the dates are a little different depending on when President's Day is. Now, last year in 2020, across the world, over 270,000 people counted birds for the GBBC. 270,000 people. And those 270,000 people counted 27 million individual birds. 27 million birds. Now, of those 27 million birds, they documented around 7,000 individual species. That 7,000 species represents over half of all bird species in the entire world. So in one weekend, regular people like you and me accounted for seeing half the bird species in the entire world, which is pretty awesome, and I think that's incredible that regular people like you and me can go out and see so many different, fascinating, amazing types of birds. All right, now that you guys know a little bit more about the Great Backyard Bird Count, let's talk a little bit about some of the birds you may see while you're out counting on February 12th through the 15th. So Pennsylvania is home to over 400 species of birds. Are you gonna see all 400 species? Probably not, but that's okay. There's still so many amazing birds that you will see when you go out looking for birds. Here is one of my favorite birds. This is a turkey vulture. Now, turkey vultures are scavengers. They are birds that kind of clean up other birds' messes. So you might see turkey vultures flying high over fields and meadows and even roadways looking for things that they can kind of clean up to eat. You'll notice it's a turkey vulture. Its wings make kind of an M shape when it's in the air, and they also will have white. Their wings will appear to be half white and half black on the underside. So that's how you can easily identify a turkey vulture. Now, other birds that you may see, it depends on where you go. If you go to a park or a green space of some sort, you may see this guy, a Baltimore Oriole. Now, these guys actually were named after Lord Baltimore because Lord Baltimore's crest had black and orange on it. So Lord Baltimore came first, and then the bird, and then the baseball team. If you go to a wetlands, you may see this bird who, although it is one of the tallest birds in the state at almost 4 feet, the great blue heron you would think makes like a really incredible sound and a really fierce call, but this is what they sound like. They kind of sound a little like a pig. So if you're out walking in the wetlands and you think you hear a pig, it's probably a great blue heron hunting for its lunch. Other birds you may see before you hear are birds like a woodpecker. Many species of woodpecker sound like they're laughing when they call. And then you'll also hear the telltale tapping of a tree when a woodpecker is nearby. Now, not every woodpecker taps a tree the same way, and they don't all laugh the same way either with their calls. If you hear a small, short, it's probably a downy or a hairy woodpecker, but if you hear, it's probably a bigger woodpecker like a pileated or a red-bellied. So listen closely to how those birds call and how they tap on the tree, because that can tell you what type of woodpecker it is. Now, other birds you may see signs of or may see the bird this winter when you're out looking for birds are this bird, turkeys. Turkeys are not hibernators or migrators, so they're in our area all year round. And the same with this bird here, our great horned owl. So great horned owls are actually some of the most active winter birds. These birds hunt a lot in the winter because they actually start their nests in January or February. So they've got to store lots of food and lots of energy to be able to raise their young in the cold, cold months. So you may see or hear a great horned owl while you're out looking for birds. Another bird I wish you could see right now, but you won't because they're currently in Florida and Mexico, is this little guy. Now, our little ruby-throated hummingbird here with his call, you won't see them right now, but they'll return in probably about April or May. They'll start coming back to our area. What's super cool about hummingbirds is that they can flap their wings thousands of times in a minute. That's so hard. I tried to do that, and one, my arm got really sore and tired, and two, I only did like 50. And this guy can beat their wings 1,000 times in a minute. So crazy. So keep an eye out for these guys. We only have ruby-throated hummingbirds here in southwestern PA. Sometimes we get a rufous hummingbird that migrates his way through, but 99.9% of the time, when you see a hummingbird in PA, it's our ruby-throated hummingbird. So those are just a few of the birds that you might see when you're out birding. But like I said, there's over 400 species. So the odds are pretty good that you're gonna see even more birds than what I showed you here. Now that you've learned about the GBBC and some of the birds you might find, let's talk about how you can attract birds to your yard so that you can do the GBBC right from your own home. So if you're like me, you love to be outside, but winter's not your favorite time of year. So for me, I don't tend to go out and go to the parks and green spaces to do the GBBC. I like to fill up all my backyard bird feeders and then enjoy watching the birds from my porch or from my nice warm house. So there are tons of different bird feeders that you can get to feed the birds in your backyard. This is one of my favorite ones. This is a little bird feeder that hangs. Now you want it to hang so the birds will come to your feeder and perch on it. Now what's nice about a feeder like this is that there's a little base platform down here that birds can sit on. Birds like sparrows and finches will sit along the edge of your bird feeder, but other birds like woodpeckers and nuthatches can hang on the side of your feeder and eat some seed from the side of the feeder. So I like this style because numerous types of birds can feed off of it. You can also get platform feeders. Platform feeders are great for smaller birds. Bigger birds like blue jays and starlings, while they're really cool to observe and they're important to count for the GBBC, they can kind of be bullies and they can kind of overtake the bird feeders and kind of steal the seed away from the smaller birds. So you want to be able to have a wide variety. This is great for woodpeckers, nuthatches, and sparrows, but you also want those platform feeders that other birds can just land on and eat from. Woodpeckers and cardinals and titmice and chickadees will all take advantage of your platform feeders. Another feeder you can get is a suet feeder. Now suet is kind of messy. It's kind of squished up, squished together lard and kind of like cooking oil kind of stuff in there, but birds love it. It's an important source of protein and fats for birds that they need over the winter. It's really important not only to have varied feeders for your birds, but you also want to have varied seed as well. Birds, just like humans, need tons of different nutrients to help them survive, especially in the winter. Smaller birds, like our songbirds here, like our oriole, they can actually shiver off their entire fat reserves in one night on a really chilly night. So it's important that we provide things like suet and peanuts that offer high protein and high fats. Those are going to help our birds stay warm during the really frigid winter. You also want to make sure you're offering nuts and berries. Those will attract birds like cedar waxwings that love fruits. And you also want to put your traditional seed in there. Things like sunflower seed and saffron seed are going to attract grosbeaks and cardinals. So keep in mind, if you want to have tons of birds visiting your backyard, get lots of different shapes and sizes of feeders, and also get lots of varied types of seed and treats for your birds. So how do you add your data that you've collected as citizen scientists to the Great Backyard Bird Count data? Well, it's pretty easy to do. You can do this in a couple different ways. If you love technology and you're really good with apps, you can use the Merlin Bird ID to enter the birds you find and then connect it directly to another app called eBird. eBird is actually the main data collection site for the GBBC, and eBird is the reason why that the GBBC was able to go global. Because it's a global site and a global app, everyone in the world could participate once we started using eBird. So before you do anything for the GBBC, you're gonna wanna create an eBird account. And that account or website you could go to is just ebird.org. Now, it's totally free to create an account, and once you create an account, it'll kind of walk you through how to go about collecting data and storing and uploading it for the GBBC. If you're like me, again, I don't like winter very much, and I'd rather have a pencil and paper, you can use your tally sheet that's going to be provided to you in your bag of goodies from the library. You can also print this off offline, or you could download it yourself and kind of fill it in on your computer. Now the sheet is pretty easy. It asks you your name, where you counted birds, name of count site. That could be backyard or Audubon Greenway or wherever you're going to count birds. It's gonna ask you, did you stay in one place or did you walk around looking for birds? For me, I would fill in the stationary because I like to watch from my porch. So I'm watching in a stationary place. I'm not walking around or traveling through parks or green spaces to try to find my birds. The date you observe the bird and the time you observe the bird. Your bird and group size. Now, when COVID's not an issue, you might have larger groups of people birding, but this year your group is probably gonna be a lot smaller. So it may just be your family or maybe just you. Duration in minutes. This is important. Now for the data to count for the GBBC, you have to do it for 15 minutes at a time. So this number should always be 15 or higher. Now you can count 15 minutes a whole bunch of times over the weekend, but for me it's easier to say, I'm gonna count for an hour here, maybe an hour there, but you have to make sure you're birding for at least 15 minutes. And finally, down here on your checklist, what you found. We'll have your species of bird, how many individuals you saw, and any notes. The notes could be something like saw them feeding or saw them flying overhead. Anything notable about what you saw goes right there in the notes column. So that's the sheet you'll use to enter data onto ebird.org when you're all done counting for the duration of the 4 days for the GBBC. It's pretty simple, and there'll be instructions on your guide that Miss Jen is going to provide for you with your library goodies. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to learn all about the Great Backyard Bird Count. I hope you learned some stuff, and I hope you have a great time going outside and counting your birds. Don't forget to register with your family so you can get your packet of information all about this program and all about how you can participate in the GBBC. Stay tuned because Miss Jen is going to read some more bird books, and she's also going to teach you how to make an awesome bird feeder. So stay tuned, and again, thank you guys.
Our next book is Birds by Carmi Lemniscus. I would like to thank Walker Studio for their permission to read the book to you today. Birds. Birds come in many different colors, shapes, and personalities. Some are really big. Others are tiny. Some like to show off, while others would rather watch. Some birds are very noisy. Others sing a sweet and tender song. Some like to go on long journeys. Others like to stay close to home. Most birds build nests from branches. Some prefer a roof over their head. But no matter what, nearly all like to have conversations. Tweet, 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 calls one. Cheep, 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 replies another. For every call, there is a response. A bird song is like the loving word of a friend. A happy song that greets us every morning. And our hearts sing too, because it's like good news coming, or messages of peace. Birds are like thoughts. They come, they stay a while, and they fly away. They fly where their hearts call them. Birds are free. They make our imaginations soar. Birds. Alrighty friends, now it's time to make our natural outdoor bird feeder. And for this craft, we are going to make a bird feeder out of an orange. And it'll look just like this. Most everything will be in your craft bag. Here is what we're going to need. We are going to need one orange, a knife, a spoon, a bowl, some wooden skewers, some twine, birdseed, scissors, a hand towel, and of course, paper towels. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to have an adult use the knife to cut the orange. Be very careful so that each side is symmetrical when you cut it. Our next step, again, we're going to need the help of an adult. We're going to take our knife and we're going to go around the fruit of the orange and cut it out so we just get the rind. Now this part will be sticky, so this is when you're going to need the hand towels and the paper towels. And remember to eat the inside of the orange later when you're done. For our next step, we are going to take the wooden skewers and we're going to poke a hole by twisting right into the orange. And we're going to do this just below the lip of the orange there. We're going to push it all the way through until it comes out the other end. So our orange will look like this. Next, we're going to take the other wooden skewer and poke a hole on the other side and have it go all the way through and the second side as well. And our orange will look like this. Once we have our wooden skewers in the orange, we are going to take our twine, and I have two pieces in there for you, and we're going to tie a piece of twine on either side of the skewer. And our bird feeder will look like this. And next we're going to repeat the same step. We're going to take our twine, loop it around the skewer, and make a double knot. If you want to do a triple knot, that might be a good idea too. When you have the twine on your skewers, your bird feeder will look just like this. Next, you'll take the bird seed from your craft bag and put about 1/3 cup into the orange and hang it on a tree outside near a window so that you can see the birds come up and eat the bird seed. Now my friend Miss Julie says that Orioles will really like this bird feeder because they like oranges. I hope you enjoyed making this bird craft, and I hope you get to use it next week for the great backyard bird count. Our last book today is The Nest That Wren Built, written by Randy Schoenstein, illustrated by Ann Hunter. I would like to thank Candlewood Press for their permission to read the book to you today. The Nest That Wren Built. These are the twigs dried in the sun that Papa collected one by one to cradle the nest that Wren built. This is the bark, snippets of twine, spidery rootlets, and needles of pine that shape the nest that Wren built. These are the leaves of ruby and gold fallen from trees, sturdy and old, that weave through the nest that Wren built. This is the sack, silky and white, brimming with spiders who feast on the mite that threaten the nest that Wren built. This is the snakeskin, warding off harm, scaly and thin, reptilian charm, draped on the nest that Wren built. This is the moss, softer than suede, stolen from stones, cool in the shade, to line the nest that wren built. These are the feathers, petal and thread, placed on the moss to soften the bed that waits in the nest that wren built. This is the tuft of rabbity fur, plucked from a sharp persnickety burr, to warm the nest that wren built. This is Papa, perching nearby, chirping a mirthful song to the sky, and guarding the nest that wren built. These are the eggs laid on the bed of velvety moss, feathers and thread, safe in the nest that wren built. These are the hatchlings scratching within, scratching and pecking, all scrawny and thin, and hatch in the nest that wren built. This is Papa, hunting for food, a spider or beetle to nourish the brood that waits in the nest that wren built. These are the nestlings, drowsy and fed, snuggly and plump on their feathery bed, warm in the nest that wren built. These are the fledglings, 14 days old. They inch to the edge while their feathers unfold, and they fly from the nest that wren built. The nest that wren built. Thank you for joining us today for the Great Backyard Bird Count Storytime. Don't forget to go out between February 12th and 15th to count your birds. Use your tally sheet or your app, and don't forget to make your bird feeder because I'm sure the birds will enjoy the delicious bird seed. Hope you enjoyed our story time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.